One day, I transmigrated and became a worthless live-in son-in-law, despised by everyone. At the start, my ice-cold CEO wife was going to kick me out the door. This marriage, I'm leaving for sure. Not even Jesus could keep me here. That's what I say. Relying on memories from my previous life, I will stir up storms in this world and reach the pinnacle. What I didn't know was that this cold-as-ice wife harbored some unknown secrets. Sign it. There's $1 million on this card. Get out of the Taylor family and never show your face to me again. The icy voice was like a Siberian cold front, without a trace of warmth. I looked up and stared at the woman in front of me. Sophia Taylor. My wife in name only. The top beauty CEO of Shingang City, worth tens of billions of dollars, was now looking down at me with a contemptuous, garbage-like gaze. She was wearing a well-tailored white suit today, which made that already breathtaking face seem even more unattainable. Her long hair was meticulously pinned at the back, revealing a swan-like neck, fair and slender. Sadly, the words that came from that pretty mouth could freeze a person to death. Beside her, my mother-in-law Marilyn stood with her arms crossed, a look of unabashed mockery at the corner of her mouth. Sophia, why waste words on this trash? $1 million is too generous for him. He freeloaded at the Taylors for 3 years. He should be shown the door with nothing. I ignored her chatter and fixed my gaze on the divorce agreement on the table. In my mind, the memories of the original owner of this body and my own crazily intertwined, eventually merging into one. 3 days. It has been 3 days since I arrived in this world. In my past life, I was Ethan, the invisible hand dominating global financial markets. I woke up to find I had become a worthless live-in son-in-law with the same name and surname, despised by everyone. For the past 3 years, the original owner lived worse than a dog. Daily insults from my mother-in-law, cutting sarcasm from relatives, and the disgust emanating from this beautiful wife to her very bones. I endured it all, accepting everything as if it were sweet. But I'm not him. I picked up the pen and, without even reading the agreement, flamboyantly signed my name. Swish, swish, 2 crisp strokes, decisive and neat. A faint, hardly noticeable surprise flickered through Sophia's beautiful phoenix-like eyes. She probably expected me to be like before, crying and clinging to her, begging her not to abandon me. I tossed the pen, leaned back on the sofa, crossed my legs, and shifted into a more comfortable position. Money, I don't want it. My voice was very calm. Marilyn immediately screamed, "What? You still think it's not enough? Ethan, I'm telling you, don't be shameless. You useless guy, and you dare to ask for so much." I picked at my ear, my gaze passing over her and landing on Sophia's face, a faint smile curling at the corner of my mouth. My point is, for the past 3 years, I slave away in your house, doing the laundry and cooking. Did you ever pay me? Even as a nanny, you'd pay at least $10,000 a month, right? 3 years is $360,000. With interest, rounded up, $500,000. Marilyn was so angry her face went green. Sophia's brow also furrowed. It seemed like she was looking me in the eye for the first time. "What do you want?" she asked. "Simple. I held out one hand. First, $500,000 in cash, paid now. Second, your mom apologizes to me." "Dream on." Marilyn jumped up. "You want me to apologize to this loser?" As if. I didn't look at her, still staring at Sophia. "See, 3 years of humiliation, and your mom's one apology plus $500,000 is a raw deal for me. But I'm in a good mood today, so consider it a prize for my freedom, a little good luck." Sophia's expression changed. What had been simple dislike had turned into scrutiny and puzzlement. Today, I was a completely different man from the one who used to cower before her, not even daring to lift his head. She was silent for a moment, then took a card out of her bag. "There's $500,000 on it. The password is 6 zeros. As for an apology," she looked at Marilyn. Marilyn stuck out her neck. "I won't, not even if I die." "All right." I nodded, stood up, picked up the divorce agreement that had already been signed, and in front of them, tore it into pieces bit by bit. Since the deal can't be reached, then this marriage will not be dissolved. I smiled warmly at Sophia. Miss Sophia, I'll wait for you to come home tonight. After saying that, I whistled and turned to walk out. Stop! Sophia's voice carried a hint of urgency and suppressed anger. I stopped in my tracks and didn't look back. Behind me were Marilyn's furious curses and Sophia's scolding. A few seconds later, Marilyn's voice, tinier than a mosquito's, reached me. Sorry. I tugged at the corner of my mouth and let out a cold laugh. Then, without looking back, I walked out of the prison that had made me sick for 3 years. For some people, missing them is a lifetime. But for me, it is a rebirth. The sunlight at the door was a bit blinding. I squinted and watched the bustling street. In my pocket was the bank card Sophia had just tossed me. The game has only just begun. Walking out of the Taylor estate, the first thing I did was find an ATM and transfer the entire $500,000 from the card into my mobile banking account. Then, on impulse, I threw that card, symbolizing both charity and humiliation, into a roadside trash can. Staring at the 6-figure balance on my phone, I took a deep breath. $500,000 in my past life wouldn't have even been enough for a single meal. But now, it is the seed money I will use to stir up this world. I didn't rush to check in a 5-star hotel, nor did I buy a designer suit. For a hunter, the best disguise is to blend into the surroundings. I took a taxi straight to the largest antique and pet market in Shingon City, Zenbeifang. In my previous life, aside from finance, my greatest hobby was collecting antiques and calligraphy/paintings. With a pair of discerning eyes, I picked up bargains and recovered lost pieces, amassing a huge fortune. The historical trajectory of this world is very similar to that of my original world, which means my knowledge still acts as a dimensional advantage here. The treasure market buzzed with voices, a chaotic mix of people. Stalls stood side by side, piled with all kinds of real and fake jars and pots, calligraphy, paintings, and jade artifacts. I strolled slowly, my gaze sweeping quickly over the items on the street stalls. Most of them were obviously fake modern handicrafts at a glance. Occasionally, there were a few genuine pieces from the late Qing to early Republican era, but their value was low, and the shopkeepers were crafty and stingy, leaving little profit to be made. I stopped at a stall in a corner. The vendor was a middle-aged man, thin as a monkey, lying back in a chair and fanning himself with a palm leaf fan, looking half dead. There weren't many things on the stall, and they were all covered with a thick layer of dust. My gaze fell on a yin tie in the corner used to weigh down a plastic sheet. The inkstone was pitch black and simply styled, but the stone was coarse with several chipped nicks on it, looking exactly like a piece of junk rock. Boss, how much for this thing? I pointed at that piece of junk rock. The seller didn't even bother to lift an eyelid, saying listlessly, "It's for weighing down the table leg, not for sale." I smiled and took out $500 in cash from my pocket. "Sir, I just rented a place and the table leg's wobbly. This stone looks perfect. $500. Sell it to me. You can just go find a brick to weigh it down." Seeing the red bills, the seller's eyes brightened and he sat up straighter. He picked up that square inkstone, weighed it in his hand, then put on a show of looking it over a few more times. "Little brother, you really have no eye for these things." He cleared his throat. "This is a family heirloom of ours. It may look plain, but it could have been used by some emperor. You never know." I sneered inwardly. "Acting. Keep acting." I kept my expression unchanged. "Then you name your price, boss." The vendor held up 3 fingers. "You seem sincere. $3,000. Take it. 500. 2005. No less. 500. The vendor, seeing I wouldn't budge and looked like I could take it or leave it, finally gave up. Fine, I'll take the blame. 500 it is. 500. Take it. He snatched the money from my hand and shoved the inkstone into my arms, as if afraid I'd change my mind. I held the black, ugly chunk of stone and turned to leave. Murmurs from a stall owner and the neighboring vendor followed behind me. "Oldly, you're something else. Sold a lump of rock for $500. Haha. Ran into a sucker, insisted on buying it to prop his table leg. Tell me, isn't that dumb? The curve at the corner of my mouth grew wider and wider. Dumb? You have no idea what you've missed. This inkstone, which looks rough, is actually the long-lost Milky Way inkstone, made from a special stone containing star-like mineral flecks, coarse in appearance, but revealing when wet. The ink ground on it is smooth and lustrous and does not fade for 1,000 years. More importantly, the bottom of this inkstone is engraved with a line of small characters. Tai Bai's remaining grace. This was once the personal possession of Li Bai, the immortal poet of the Tang dynasty. Priceless. Holding the inkstone, I didn't go to the auction house. Instead, I walked straight into the largest antique shop in the Treasures District, Zhenbao Studio. Rather than waiting for the auction house to skim commissions at every step, it was better to find a buyer who knew its worth and convert it to cash quickly. A young woman wearing a qipao, her figure graceful, came up to meet me. "Hello, sir. How can I help you?" I set the inkstone I was carrying down on the counter. "Are you selling this?" "Make me an offer." The Cheongsam woman's gaze fell on the square, jet-black inkstone. Her professional smile stiffened for a moment, but she still said politely, "Sir, we have a specialist appraiser here. Please wait a moment." She turned and went into the inner room. Soon, an elderly man wearing gold-rimmed glasses and a goatee, looking like an immortal hermit, came out. He glanced at the inkstone, then at me, his eyes carrying a barely perceptible trace of disdain. "Young man, want to sell something?" Take a look." I was succinct. The old man picked up the inkstone, glanced at it casually, then curled his lip. "Young man, this is just a piece of junk stone. The texture is rough, the workmanship poor, probably picked up from some hidden corner, right? Even as a coaster for a table leg, it would be too tacky." He said that as he reached to put the inkstone down. "Wait," I said. "What?" Not convinced. The old man snorted. "I've spent my life playing with stones. Can I still be mistaken?" I ignored him and said to the Cheongsam-clad woman beside him, "Miss, please, fetch a basin of clean water." The woman in the Cheongsam hesitated, glancing at the old man. The old man waved his hand impatiently. "Beat him. I want to see what tricks he can pull." Soon, a basin of clear water was brought up. In front of them, I slowly immersed that piece of broken stone into the water. A miracle happened. The stone's surface, originally black and rough, seemed to come alive the moment it touched the water. Countless tiny, star-like points of light lit up within the inkstone. As the ripple spread, it was as if an entire resplendent Milky Way had been contained within this little inkstone. The whole main hall of the treasure pavilion was instantly illuminated by this dreamlike starlight. This is... The old man with the goatee's magnifying glass clattered to the floor. He lunged to the counter and stared fixedly at the inkstone in the basin, his whole body trembling. The Galaxy Inkstone. It's the legendary Galaxy Inkstone. He cried out, his voice filled with an incredible fervor. The woman in the qipao covered her mouth with her hand, her beautiful eyes full of shock. I fished the inkstone out of the water. The starlight vanished in an instant, and it returned to its plain, unremarkable appearance. I wiped it dry with a cloth, gently turned it over, revealing the faint line of small characters on the bottom. Tai Bai's legacy. The old man's breath stopped instantly. He snatched the inkstone, put on another pair of reading glasses, leaned in to examine it closely, his lips trembling, unable to say a word for a long time. Li Tai Bai's authentic work. Oh my God. Oh my God. He held it as if it were a priceless treasure, carefully placing the inkstone back onto the tray lined with velvet, then suddenly looked up, his eyes blazing as he stared at me. "Young brother." "No, sir. This inkstone, how much do you intend to sell it for?" His attitude made a 180-degree turn. He was so respectful, he was practically about to kneel to me. I held out 2 fingers. $20 million US? The old man probed. I shook my head. $200 million US? His voice began to tremble. I shook my head again and calmly spat out 3 words. 2 stores. The old man was stunned. What does that mean?" What I mean is I won't sell this inkstone for money. I pointed at the resplendent treasure shop. I want to use it to trade for your shop and the branch you have in the west of the city. Ownership 100%. The old man's face instantly turned deathly pale. The treasure shop was his life's work. Its combined market value was roughly just over 100 million US dollars. Trading two shops for a single inkstone would be a huge loss for him. But he stared at that Star River inkstone, greed and longing almost spilling out his eyes. This was Li Bai's relic. To someone like him who had dealt with antiques his whole life, this was a sacred object, a treasure that could make his name live on in history and be the prized possession of his shop. Money can be earned back, but if you miss this thing, you'll never encounter it again. He gritted his teeth, veins bulging on his forehead, caught in an inner battle. I didn't rush him either. I picked up the tea the woman in the cheapao had just poured for me and took a leisurely sip. I knew he would agree. Sure enough, after struggling for a full 5 minutes, he seemed to be drained of all strength and slumped. Fine. I'll switch. The contract was signed on the spot. He had also called the lawyer, so the paperwork was completed very quickly. An hour later, I became the new owner of both Xinbaozhai shops. The elderly man, named Arthur Carter, now the proprietor of Treasure Studio, carried that inkstone and burst into tears as he entered the back hall. He probably intended to hold the treasure and sleep. I sat in the boss chair and spun around once. From $500,000 to $100 million. It took less than 2 hours. This is the speed at which knowledge converts into money. Boss. The woman in the cheapao, who was also the manager of this shop, Chloe Adams, stood respectfully before me and handed over a set of papers. These are the shop's recent accounts. I waved my hand. You understand this better than I do. From now on, you'll be in charge of the shop. Chloe was momentarily stunned. Then a trace of surprise flashed in her beautiful eyes. She had expected the new boss to make sweeping reforms, perhaps even replace her, an old retainer of the previous regime. She hadn't thought I would give up control like this. Thank you for trusting me, boss. I smiled and stood up. By the way, do me a favor. Use the shop's channels to look someone up for me. The boss, please speak. Ryan, the young master of White Group in Xingong City. Chloe's expression shifted slightly. What are you looking him up for? Mr. Ryan. He's not a good sort. I know. A cold arc lifted at the corner of my mouth. I just want to see how much he's worth, whether he's worth my playing with. Night fell, and at the top private club in Xingong City, heaven and earth, neon lights flickered. Those who come and go here are either rich or noble. I changed into an Armani haute couture suit that Chloe had prepared for me and sat in a booth on the 3rd floor, gently swirling the whiskey in my glass. Chloe sat directly across from me, wearing a tight, fiery red evening gown that accentuated every curve of her well-proportioned figure. She was a smart woman. When I asked her to look into Ryan, she had already guessed some things. Boss, all of Ryan's files are here. She handed me a tablet. I took it and skimmed through quickly. The White Group, primarily in real estate, is considered a top force in Star Harbor City. Ryan is the only son, a typical playboy who, relying on his family's power, acts like a bully. The number of actresses and models he's been with is countless. Recently, he's been feverishly pursuing Sophia. The motive is obvious, a powerful alliance to absorb Sophia's Shengshi conglomerate. At the end of the tablet was a photograph. In the photo, Ryan was driving a red Ferrari, and in the passenger seat sat my soon-to-be ex-wife, Sophia. Sophia still wore that icy, emotionless expression, but she hadn't resisted. I turned off the tablet and drained the glass. A burning heat raced from my throat down into my stomach. Boss, you and Ms. Sophia, Chloe probed cautiously. Ex-husband. I uttered the 2 words flatly. A flicker of comprehension crossed Chloe's face, quickly replaced by a shade of concern. Ryan is narrow-minded and vindictive. If he finds out about your relationship with Miss Sophia, he probably won't let it go. I'm waiting for him. I sneered. I never held grudges, because if someone wronged me, I would settle it on the spot. As I was speaking, a commotion rose outside the booth. Oh, isn't this the #1 beauty of Xingong City? Miss Sophia? What wind blew you here?" A flippant voice sounded. I looked up and saw a young man in a floral shirt with his hair dyed in rainbow colors, accompanied by a few henchmen, blocking the entrance to a private room. Standing at the door of the private room was Sophia. As for that young man in the floral shirt, though I'd never seen him before, I could guess most of his character from his arrogant expression. "Mr. Jason, please move aside." Sophia's voice remained icy, but carried a faint, barely noticeable weariness. "Move aside? Miss Sophia, don't be so disrespectful." Jason leered and rubbed his hands together. "My brother Ryan talks about you every day. We finally managed to get you out today. How can you just leave? Come in and have a couple more drinks." As he spoke, he reached out to grab Sophia's arm. Sophia's expression changed. She stepped back, avoiding his groping hand. "Jason, I'll say it again, get away." "Hey, so you show off your face but have no shame?" Jason's expression darkened. "Do you think you're still that lofty, Miss Sophia? Let me tell you, if it weren't for my brother taking a liking to you, your crappy company would have been finished ages ago. Don't act all high and mighty." His several followers closed in as well, all looking malicious. Sophia's complexion grew increasingly pale. Although she was a powerful woman in the business world, faced with such a rogue, she was after all still a woman. She glanced around. The guests nearby treated it like a spectacle, whispering among themselves. No one dared to step forward. The White family and the Jason family had entrenched power in Star Harbor City, and no one was willing to offend them for the sake of a woman. Despair began to spread in Sophia's eyes, just as Jason's hand was about to touch her again. A hand, like an iron clamp, firmly grabbed his wrist. "This!" Jason sucked in a cold breath from the pain. The sharp ache in his wrist instantly changed his expression. "Who the hell dares meddle in my business?" he roared as he turned back. Then he saw me. I leisurely let go of his hand, took a handkerchief out of my pocket, carefully wiped the fingers I had just touched, then disgustedly threw the handkerchief on the ground. "Sorry, didn't check the almanac before leaving home. Ran into a mad dog." The whole place fell deathly silent. Everyone stared at me as if looking at a corpse. Jason was stunned for a full 3 seconds before he reacted, so furious that his whole body trembled. "You, who the hell are you calling a dog?" "Whoever it fits, say whoever it fits," I said coolly. Sophia was also taken aback. She looked at me, who had suddenly appeared, her expression unbearably complex. Shock, confusion, and a hint of something she hadn't even noticed in herself. Reassurance? "What are you? How dare you talk to me like that?" Jason pointed at my nose, furious. "Who I am doesn't matter." I stepped to Sophia's side, shielding her, and stared at Jason. "What matters is that this woman I just protected. You can either take your people and get out now, or I'll make you crawl out." "Ha ha! I didn't hear that wrong, did I?" Jason laughed exaggeratedly as if he'd heard the funniest joke in the world, tears nearly coming out his eyes. He pointed at me and said to the men behind him, "Did you hear that? This penniless nobody who popped up from who knows where says I should crawl out." The men followed suit and burst into loud laughter. "Kid, do you know who you're talking to? This is Mr. Jason, Mr. Ryan's brother. I think you're just begging to die." The spectators watching the show around us also shook their heads, their looks toward me full of pity and contempt. "Who is this guy? He dresses all proper, but his brain doesn't work. All that to show off in front of Miss Sophia? The price was way too high. Jason is a madman. This kid is going to be in big trouble." Sophia also tugged at my sleeve, a trace of urgency in her voice. "Ethan, don't be impulsive. This isn't your fight. You should leave." She still thought I was that useless person who needed her protection. I glanced back at her, a playful smile tugging at the corner of my mouth. "What? Afraid I'll cause you trouble?" Sophia was momentarily at a loss for words. "Don't worry, just a few small fry. They won't stir up any waves." My voice was not loud, but it reached everyone's ears clearly. Jason's laughter stopped abruptly, his face so sullen it seemed to drip. "Good, very good," he said through gritted teeth. "I want to see what ability you have to boast like this. Get him, break his legs." At his command, the black-clad bodyguards behind him immediately lunged at me like wolves and tigers. These men were trained fighters. Their temples bulged, their strides steady. Clearly not ordinary thugs. Chloe's expression changed. Instinctively, she moved to call security. Sophia was even more terrified, her face drained of color. She shut her eyes, unable to bear watching the bloody scene to come. I didn't even lift an eyelid. When the first bodyguard's fist was about to smash into my face, I moved. My movement wasn't fast, it was almost casual. I turned sideways and raised my elbow. Bang! A muffled thud. The burly man, about 9 meters tall, seemed to have been hit by a speeding truck. His whole body flew backward at a strange angle, slammed into the wall, slid to the ground, foamed at the mouth, and lost consciousness. One move. Just one move. The entire hall fell into dead silence once again. The remaining bodyguards stood frozen in place, looking at me with uncertain alarm. I flicked my hand as if just brushing off a fly. All of you, come on together. I'm in a hurry. They glanced at each other, roared, and lunged forward at the same time. Using both fists and feet, they fought with fierce momentum. But to me, their movements were like slow-motion scenes from a movie, full of flaws. I strolled casually as I weaved through their attack. Every strike was precise and efficient. Sometimes he would grab a wrist and twist it, the bone-shattering crack, making one's teeth ache. Sometimes he would flick his fingers to hit the opponent's numb point, leaving half their body unable to move. Sometimes a simple sweeping kick would unbalance a 200-pound thug, sending him sprawling in a humiliating tumble. Not even 30 seconds. The fight was over. All of Jason's bodyguards lay on the ground, moaning in pain. Not one could stand. As for me, not even the hem of my clothes was out of place. I took step after step toward the Jason who was already petrified. The color drained from his face in an instant. His eyes were filled with fear as he looked at me. "You don't come any closer. My brother is Ryan. If you lay a hand on me, he won't let you off." He spoke as he backed away in terror. I tugged at the corner of my mouth and let out a cold laugh. "Ryan, I'm waiting for him." As soon as the words left his mouth, I kicked him in the knee. Crack! Ah! Jason let out a pig-like scream and collapsed to his knees. I didn't stop. I delivered another kick, striking the knee of his other leg. Crack! I told you to crawl out. I looked down at him from above, my voice icy, devoid of any emotion. "Now, you may begin to crawl." Jason hugged his legs, rolling on the ground in pain, sweat and tears mingling, utterly disheveled. The surrounding guests didn't dare breathe. Their looks at me shifted from disdain and pity to profound awe and fear. Sophia also stood there dazed, looking at me with the expression one uses when staring at a stranger. This decisive, ruthless man, like a demon god. Could he really be the useless son-in-law who had endured humiliation in her family for 3 years? The huge contrast left her brain completely blank. The manager of Heaven on Earth finally arrived, fashionably late. He saw bodyguards rolling on the floor and Jason kneeling and wailing, terrified out of his wits. But when his gaze landed on Chloe standing behind me, he forcibly swallowed the reprimand that had been on the tip of his tongue. Chloe is a regular here and, more importantly, a big shot he dare not offend. "Sister Chloe, what's going on?" the manager asked cautiously, wiping cold sweat. Chloe curled her red lips into a smile and, full of charm, walked over to my side, naturally linking her arm through mine. "Nothing much." Mr. Jason drank too much and insisted on barking like a dog. My boss couldn't stand it and helped him stretch his muscles. Her words made Jason's face flush instantly to the color of pig liver. You all, what's wrong with us?" I lower my head, looking at him, smiling innocently. "Mr. Jason, the floor is cold. Hurry and get up, or you'll catch a cold and that wouldn't be good." Jason trembled with anger, but didn't dare say another word. Those 2 kicks I just gave had completely shattered his mental defenses. He had no doubt that if he even dared utter one more word, the devil before him would not hesitate to cripple his third leg. Under the stunned gazes of everyone, Jason, the young master of the Jason family who had been rampant in Star Harbor City, really crawled toward the door like a dog, supporting himself with his hands, inch by humiliating inch. The floor he passed over was marked by 2 clear streaks of blood. The entire club was deathly silent, with only his heavy breathing and suppressed sobs remaining. This scene was deeply etched into the minds of everyone present. They knew that, from tonight on, Shingang City had gained a ruthless person no one should dare provoke. Only when Jason's figure completely disappeared out the door did the oppressive atmosphere ease a little. I turned and looked at Sophia, who was still dazed. "Miss Sophia, the show's over. Aren't you leaving?" Sophia's body trembled sharply, her gaze full of complexity as it fell on me. She opened her mouth, as if wanting to say something, but in the end only uttered 2 words. "Thank you. No need to thank me." I smiled. I just plain dislike him. Besides, I paused, leaned close to her ear, and in a voice only the 2 of us could hear said, "After all, he's your ex-husband. You can't just stand by and watch another man bully you, can you?" The warm breath blew against her ear, instantly staining her cheeks with a flush, and her body grew a little stiff. She instinctively took a step back, putting distance between us, her eyes darting away, unable to look at me. I'll go now." She dropped that line and left in a hurry, as if fleeing. Watching her flustered back, the smile at the corner of my mouth grew wider. The iceberg seemed to be showing signs of melting. "Boss, you really know how to cherish a beauty," Chloe said beside me, sounding sour. "What? Jealous?" I teased. Chloe's pretty face flushed. With all the charm in the world, she shot me a look. "I'm not. But boss, you took care of Jason tonight. Ryan over there definitely won't let it go. If he dares to come, I'll have him keep Jason company," I said nonchalantly. "A rich idler who lives off his family's wealth. In my eyes, he doesn't even qualify as an opponent. My true target is hidden behind Ryan, the vast capital that is eyeing the Shengshi consortium, and also my mysterious ex-wife, Sophia. The secrets she holds are far more interesting than a single Ryan. By the way," I said as if I had remembered something, "in a few days there's a charity auction in the Southern District. Give me an invitation." "You're going to the auction?" Chloe asked, a little surprised. "Yeah, to see a few old friends." A glint of sharpness flashed in my eyes. At that auction, not only would Ryan and Sophia be going, but more importantly, there was an item I was determined to obtain. That would be the first cornerstone with which I would leverage the entire Shingang City. Shunjur Jurga Shrujurku. 3 days later, Shingang City International Convention and Exhibition Center. The annual Starlight Charity Gala was grandly held here. The banquet gathered almost all of Shingang City's high society celebrities. Handsome men and beautiful women, elegant attire and coiffures, glasses raised and clinking. I was wearing a tasteful white suit, walking the red carpet alongside Chloe, who was dressed in a black evening gown. The man was handsome and upright, the woman seductive and bewitching. Their appearance drew everyone's attention at once. Who is that man? I haven't seen him before. I don't know, but if Chloe is personally accompanying him, his status must be something special. Look at his bearing, calm and reserved, but his eyes are as sharp as an eagle's. He's definitely someone of note. I ignored the chatter around me and scanned the venue quickly. Before long, I spotted a few familiar figures in the crowd. Sophia. Today she was wearing a moon-white gown. Her aloof demeanor was like a fairy from the Guanghan Palace, detached from the world. Beside her stood a tall, handsome man, courteously conversing with her. It was Ryan. His face was somewhat pale, and his gait a bit awkward. Clearly, the injuries from that night hadn't fully healed. When he saw me, his eyes instantly turned filled with bitter resentment. If looks could kill, I fear I would have died 1,000 times. Jason, who was beside him, had even come in a wheelchair, both legs heavily cast, his gaze toward me full of fear and hatred. "Ryan, it's him. It's that bastard." Jason spat through gritted teeth. Ryan patted his shoulder, signaling him to calm down, but the malice in his eyes only grew more intense. He pushed Sophia aside and walked straight toward me. "Are you Ethan?" He looked down at me, his tone full of arrogance. "It's me." I nodded. "Good, you have guts." Ryan sneered. "You're the first to lay a hand on my people. I don't care who you are. Today you won't be leaving through that door." No sooner had he finished than a dozen or so bodyguards in black suits swarmed in from all directions, surrounding me in a tight ring. The atmosphere in the venue instantly grew tense. Everyone stopped talking and turned to look. Sophia's expression also changed. She hurried over and stood in front of me. "Ryan, what are you trying to do? This is a charity gala." "Sophia, this is none of your business. Step aside." Ryan's gaze was icy. "This is a grudge between him and me." "I told you he's mine." A cold yet authoritative voice rang out. Chloe hooked her arm through mine and walked slowly to the front, her beautiful eyes sweeping over Ryan with a hint of disdain. "Mr. Ryan, if you want to lay a hand on someone on my heaven-on-earth territory, did you forget to ask me?" Ryan's face stiffened. Although Heaven and Earth was officially just a club, the power behind it was something even his father respected. He hadn't expected that this Ethan would actually be Chloe's man. "Boss Chloe, what do you mean by this? You're going to go against a white family over some pretty boy." Ryan's tone softened, but still carried a threat. "Pretty boy." Chloe laughed, laughing so heartily it shook her branches. "Mr. Ryan, you probably don't know yet that the person standing before you is the new owner of Treasure Studio." "What?" At these words, the whole room erupted. Jinbao Zhai, the leading antique shop in Shingang City, with assets exceeding $100 million. That seemingly ordinary young man turned out to be the owner of Jinbao Zhai. Ryan was stunned too. No matter how he looked at it, he never imagined that the useless ex-husband he had regarded as a thorn in his side would, in a single stroke, become a big shot on equal footing with him. "Impossible. Absolutely impossible," he cried out. "Believe it if you want." I shrugged, too lazy to explain to him. I walked past him and went straight to sit in the front row of the auction. Ryan's face turned pale and flushed in turn. He knew that with Chloe here, he couldn't touch me today. He glared at me venomously, then returned to his seat. The commotion subsided for the time being. The auction officially began. The earlier lots were precious jewelry, calligraphy, and antiques, prompting the wealthy attendees to bid eagerly and creating a lively atmosphere. I never raised my paddle until the auctioneer brought out a special lot. It was a plot of land that looked utterly unremarkable. "Ladies and gentlemen, up next for auction is an industrial plot located in the western suburbs of the city, covering 500 mu, starting bid $50 million. The moment the host finished speaking, the audience fell silent. Everyone stared at the plot of land as if looking at a fool. In the western suburbs of the city, a godforsaken place with poor geology and no development value at all. Who would spend $50 million to buy a piece of wasteland? However, my eyes lit up in an instant. $50 million once. $50 million twice. The host held up the gavel, a slightly awkward smile on his face. This plot of land was forced in by the municipal department. He knew no one would want it and just wanted to get through the motions quickly. Just as he was about to bring down the third hammer, I raised the bidding paddle. $60 million. The faint voice sounded exceptionally clear in the silent meeting hall. Everyone's gazes instantly focused on me. Is this guy crazy? Spending $60 million on a piece of wasteland. The new owner of Jinbao Studio. Is that the kind of taste he has? Must be an idiot burning money like that. Ryan actually laughed out loud, his gaze at me full of contempt and mockery. "Ethan, are you not awake? That crappy place. I wouldn't take it even if it were given to me. And you spent $60 million to buy it? I don't think you'll be in that boss position for more than a few days." Sophia also furrowed her brow, her eyes full of incomprehension. With her business mind, she couldn't see any value in that plot at all. However, Ryan beside her, after mocking me, suddenly raised his paddle. $70 million. He shouted, his face wearing a mocking smile. He hadn't set his sights on this land. He simply wanted to disgust me. He knew I wanted it, so he tried to compete with me, driving the price up and making me the sucker. Interesting. I smiled. $80 million. I raised the paddle again, calm and collected. $90 million. Ryan followed without hesitation. $100 million US dollars. I didn't even bat an eyelid. The price was instantly raised to $100 million US dollars. The atmosphere in the venue turned strange. Everyone could see that this was no longer a simple auction, but a clash of pride between two men. Ryan's expression also grew somewhat grave. $100 million had already exceeded his budget. But looking at my indifferent demeanor, an unnamed surge of anger shot up in him. He couldn't lose. He especially couldn't lose to the worthless man he despised most. $110 million, he shouted through gritted teeth. $200 million. I simply doubled the price. Boom! The whole place erupted. $200 million. Buying a worthless plot of land that nobody wanted. Everyone looked at me as if I were crazy. Even Chloe couldn't help but tug at my sleeve. Boss, don't be impulsive. It's not worth it. Ryan was completely stunned. He stared at me intently, as if trying to detect any trace of bravado on my face. But there was none. My expression was as calm as if I were saying, nice weather today. It was as if $200 million were nothing more than an insignificant number to me. That composure, that decisiveness made him feel unprecedented pressure and fear. He didn't dare to follow. If I let go, then he'd have to fill the $200 million hole himself. His father insisted on breaking his legs. You're ruthless. Ryan squeezed 3 words out through his teeth and dejectedly put down the badge. $200 million, one shot. $200 million US dollars twice. $200 million US dollars 3 times. Bang! The gavel came down. Congratulations to this gentleman for successfully winning the parcel in the west of the city. Under everyone's eyes staring as if I were a fool, I slowly stood up, walked onto the stage, and signed the contract. No one knew that the moment I wrote my name on the contract, my heart was laughing wildly. Wasteland? They had no idea that just 3 days later, the government would announce a bombshell. A brand new super high-speed rail line will run through Shingang City. And the site for Shingang West Station is right above this wasteland beneath my feet. By then, the value of this land will increase by at least 100-fold. $20 billion US dollars. I bought a future worth $20 billion with a sky-high price of $200 million. Ryan, thanks for your assist. I accept this generous gift. When the auction ended, I became the laughingstock of the entire room. The title, The Sucker Who Spent $200 million USD to Buy Wasteland, quickly spread throughout the upper circles of Shingang City. The stock price of Treasure Pavilion fell in response, and many partners called, obliquely asking about the situation. Everyone thought I was crazy. Ryan was even more smug, boasting my glorious deed everywhere, as if he were the one who had ultimately won. Only I knew that a storm capable of overturning the balance of Shingang City was quietly brewing. For these 3 days I went nowhere, just stayed in Chloe's club, sipping tea, listening to music, as if those $200 million were merely trickling away. Although Chloe didn't say it aloud, the worry in her eyes grew heavier by the day. She even contacted several real estate developers behind my back, tried to transfer that plot at a discount, but without exception, all refused. In everyone's eyes, that piece of land had completely fallen into my hands. Sophia also gave me a call. On the phone, her voice carried a trace of hesitation and complexity. Ethan, why did you do this? Do what? I asked, feigning ignorance. That piece of land, $200 million. Do you know what that means? There was a faint, barely noticeable urgency in her voice. I know. I smiled. It means I'll be richer than you very soon. You. Sophia, on the other end of the line, was left speechless by my words. You are unreasonable. She slammed the phone down with a click. I can imagine her flustered, exasperated expression right now, and can't help finding it a bit amusing. This woman, who has clearly already divorced me, still can't help but worry about me. Is it lingering affection? or simply pity? The third day, 3 in the afternoon. The national news channel aired a major announcement right on schedule. To promote regional economic development, the state has decided to construct the Xinjiang super high-speed rail line. The route will be 1,200 kilometers long with a design speed of 600 kilometers per hour. Xinjiang City will have 2 stations, the Central Station and Xinjiang West Station. The specific site for Xinjiang West Station is located at. When a news anchor read that familiar place name, the whole of Xinjiang City, every merchant, tycoon, and speculator watching the broadcast went dumbfounded. Chloe was briefing me on the losses at Zhenbao Studio, while the TV in the club's lobby was showing the news. When she heard the 3 words, Xinjiang West Station, she froze completely. She snapped her head around, looking at the TV screen, then snapped it back to look at me. Her beautiful peach blossom eyes were filled with utter shock and disbelief. Boss you. She pointed at me, her lips trembling, unable to finish a single sentence. I picked up the teacup, blew lightly on the steam, and took a sip. When the wind blows, even pigs can fly, I said lightly, and I was merely standing at that windward spot a bit earlier. Chloe's mind went blank. She finally understood that I wasn't crazy, nor was I stupid. He is a god who can foresee the future. At the same time, White Group, President's Office. Ryan was holding a newly picked model in his arms, showing off in front of his father how he had dug me out of $200 million. Dad, you should have seen that idiot's face. I raised the price, and he followed without batting an eye. $200 million. Just to buy that piece of trash, ha. His father, Richard White, a shrewd old fox, twirled his mustache and showed a satisfied smile. Just then, the office door was flung open. The secretary barreled in, stumbling, face pale, voice shaking. Chairman, it's bad. Something terrible has happened. What are you panicking about? Richard frowned. Has the sky fallen? Worse than the sky falling. The secretary, pointing at the TV on the wall, said breathlessly that plot in the west of the city, they're going to build a high-speed rail station there. Ryan's laughter cut off abruptly. The smile on Richard's face froze instantly as well. The father and son stiffly turned their heads and looked at the television. The moment they read the news, Richard spat a mouthful of old blood and fell backwards, rigid. Dad! Ryan let out a terrified scream. The office instantly erupted into chaos. $20 billion US. They personally handed a $20 billion opportunity to the people they looked down on the most. This blow hurt more than killing them would have. When the news spread, the whole Star Harbor city trembled. My phone was instantly blown up with calls. Those bankers, investors, and entrepreneurs who once avoided me at all costs now wore the most obsequious faces, crying and begging to give me money, just hoping to get a share of the Xinjiang West Station development project. I ignored them all. I sat in the top-floor office of Zhenbao Zhai, looking out the window. Outside the window were the thousands of lights of Xinjiang City. From today on, among these lights, there will be a place for me. And it will be the most dazzling seat. Chloe stood behind me, watching my back, her gaze full of infatuation and admiration. In less than a week, this man had risen from a discarded nobody with nothing to his name to become the hottest billionaire in Xinjiang City. This kind of move, this kind of nerve was nothing short of a miracle. Boss, White Group stock hit the daily limit down as soon as the market opened today, Chloe reported. I heard Richard was so furious he ended up in the ICU. The White family is leaderless now. It's a complete mess. Not surprising, I said without astonishment. The White family's foundation was in real estate. Missing out on that prime land in the west of the city was equivalent to cutting off their development path for the next decade. Moreover, I had prepared another big gift for them. Release the news that I'm planning to start a new real estate company to comprehensively develop the West City New Town. At the same time, begin buying up all the outstanding, circulating shares of the White Group on the market. I gave the order. Cut off the firewood under the pot and kick someone when they're down. What I want is not just to defeat them, but to make sure they never rise again. Yes, excitement flashed in Chloe's eyes as she immediately went to carry it out. When it comes to our enemies, she and I are alike. We never show mercy. Just then, my private phone rang. It's an unfamiliar number. I answered. Ethan. On the other end of the line came a familiar yet icy voice. It was Sophia. Miss Sophia, what can I do for you? I leaned back in the executive chair, my tone casual. There was a brief silence on the other end of the line. Did you already know? Her voice trembled slightly. Know what? Know that you were going to call me. You know what I'm talking about. Sophia's voice rose a few degrees. The high-speed rail station incident. Did you get insider information in advance? So what if I did? What if I didn't? I retorted. Miss Sophia, we're already divorced. My affairs don't seem to require reporting to you, do they? Sophia was once again left speechless by me. She took a deep breath, as if calming her emotions. I'm not here to accuse you. I want to talk to you about a partnership. Partnership? I laughed. Miss Sophia, do you think you still have any standing to talk business with me right now? Although the Shengshi Consortium is also a multi-billion-dollar enterprise, it doesn't measure up to the trump card worth $20 billion that I hold. Now I'm in a house, and she is merely a gambler waiting to be seated. I know you look down on the current Shengshi Consortium. There was a fragility and weariness in Sophia's voice that didn't belong to her. But I have a secret big enough to make you change your mind. Oh, I was intrigued. Tell me about it. This secret concerns you, concerns me, and even concerns why we got married in the first place. My pupils contracted abruptly. I'm waiting for you on the top floor of heaven and earth. After saying this, Sophia hung up the phone. I held the phone, my brow furrowed. Why did we get married in the first place? This question had puzzled the original owner for 3 years. 3 years ago, Shingang City's top beauty CEO, Sophia, suddenly announced she would take a son-in-law as husband through marriage into the family. There was only one condition, the 8 characters Batsi. She demanded that the man's birth date and 8 characters perfectly match hers. For a time, every man in Star Harbor City went crazy. In the end, an obscure poor boy, Ethan, was chosen. Everyone thought he had shot up to fame overnight, but they did not know that was the beginning of hell. This marriage, from beginning to end, carried an eerie strangeness. Sophia's dislike of me didn't feel like the dislike one has for an ordinary person. It was more like a deliberate distancing and suppression. Could there really be some hidden circumstance behind this that no one knows about? I drove to heaven on earth. The penthouse is the most luxurious presidential suite here, not open to the public. Chloe personally escorted me to the door. Boss, Miss Sophia is inside. Her expression was somewhat complicated. Got it. You can go down first. I pushed the door open. In front of the huge floor-to-ceiling window, Sophia stood alone in a black gown, looking out at the night view. Her back looked somewhat lonely. Hearing the door open, she turned around. Today she lacked her usual coldness and dominance. That exquisitely beautiful face carried an unresolved melancholy and resolve. You're here. Speak. What's your secret? I got straight to the point. Sophia didn't answer immediately. She walked to the wine cabinet and poured 2 glasses of red wine. She handed me one of the glasses. Try it, a 1982 Lafite. I took the glass, but didn't drink, just watched her quietly. She gave a self-mocking smile and took a sip herself. Ethan, do you believe there is such a thing as fate in this world? She suddenly asked a strangely out-of-the-blue question. I don't believe in fate. I shook my head. I only believe in myself. But I do. Sophia's gaze grew distant. Our Taylor family isn't just ordinary merchants. We're an ancient martial family that has carried on for over 1,000 years. Ancient martial family? I raised an eyebrow. That phrase sounded a bit cheesy. I know you don't believe me. Sophia smiled bitterly. To a family like ours, worldly wealth and power are nothing but fleeting clouds. What we pursue is power that transcends the limits of life. But our Taylor family suffered a great calamity 20 years ago. Enemies came to our door, and all the masters perished. My father fought to the death to save my mother and me, but he was gravely injured and did not have long to live. Before he died, he cast a divination for me. The hexagram said my fate is Phoenix descends to the ninth heaven, but it also foretold a great life and death calamity. The only one who can save me is a man whose destiny forms a dragon and phoenix in harmony with mine. That man is you. She looked at me and spoke each word deliberately. I was stunned. What the hell is this all about? A Shinsha novel? So you invited a husband 3 years ago just to find me as a tool to resolve the calamity? I quickly pieced it together. Yes. Sophia closed her eyes in pain. Father said that before you truly awaken, I must not have any emotional entanglement with you, and I must even deliberately distance myself from you and suppress you to temper your heart and stir the hidden dragon power in your fate. Otherwise, both of us would die. That's your reason for treating me with icy indifference for 3 years. I felt the absurdity. Yes. Then why are you telling me this now? Because my calamity arrived early. Sophia's face immediately went deathly pale. The ones attacking Shengshi Consortium are not ordinary business rivals. They are the enemies who destroyed my Taylor family 20 years ago. Their target isn't Shengshi, it's me. They want to take the Feng Yuan inside me to help them break through their bottleneck. I can't hold on much longer. Ethan, I know this is unfair to you, but right now, I can only beg you. She looked at me, her eyes full of pleading and despair. Please, save me. I looked at the woman before me, stripped of all pretenses and appearing unbearably fragile, and my heart was a tangle of emotions. So it turns out I didn't transmigrate into an urban feel-good novel, but into the fantasy channel? What ancient martial family? What dragon and phoenix harmony? What life and death calamity? Sounds like a lousy script. Why on earth should I save you? I swirled the red wine in my glass, a mocking curve tugging at the corner of my mouth. Sophia, have you forgotten that we're already divorced? You treated me like a tool for 3 years, and now that disaster has struck, you suddenly remember me? Do you think I'm some saint who repays evil with good? My words were like a knife, stabbing hard into her heart. Her face grew even paler, her body wavering. I know I wronged you. Her voice wavered with sobs. Do whatever you want of me. Just save me. My life, Shengshi Corporation, everything I have, I can give it all to you. I'm not interested in what belongs to you. I shook my head. What exactly do you want then? She finally broke down, tears welling up and spilling over. I put down my glass and walked her step by step. I reached out, gently lifted her chin, forcing her to look into my eyes. It's simple. I want you to beg me, like 3 years ago, beg me. My voice was like a demon from the underworld. Sophia's body trembled violently. She looked at me, her eyes full of humiliation, struggle, and finally, resignation. She slowly, very slowly, knelt down before me. Those knees that had once loomed over me now humbly pressed against the cold floor. I beg you, save me. Her voice, broken and helpless. I looked down at her from above, looking at the woman who once made me look up to her, now kneeling at my feet like a pet. An unprecedented sense of control and desire to conquer grows wildly in the depths of my heart. I know that from this moment on, this woman, both body and soul, will belong to me completely and utterly. I bend down and whisper in her ear, remember how you look tonight. From now on, you are no longer the lofty Miss Sophia. You are simply Ethan's woman. After saying that, I picked her up around the waist and strode toward the bedroom. Outside the window, the night grew even deeper. A new storm is about to arrive, and I will be the sole king in that storm. George, I've got good news and bad news. Which do you want to hear first? I put down my paintbrush and looked at my friend Frank. He stood at the studio door with a mysterious air, his face a mix of nervousness and excitement. Let's start with the bad news. After all, I've gotten used to it these past 3 years. Your painting, Eternity, just sold for a sky-high price. Over $6 million. I frowned. How is that bad news? Frank chuckled. Because it's actually part of the good news. The bad news is, buddy, you might need to see a psychiatrist. What do you mean? A woman who looks exactly like Mary showed up at your art exhibition. I almost thought I was seeing a ghost. The paintbrush slipped from my hand and fell to the floor, splattering paint across the unfinished canvas. Mary, my late wife, died 3 years ago after accidentally falling off a cliff. I watched with my own eyes as her body was pulled from the water. In that moment, my world completely collapsed. Stop joking around, Frank. Why would I lie to you? She even left this. Frank handed me a note with an address and a time written on it. My hand trembled slightly. The handwriting was exactly the same as Mary's. That night, I waited until midnight at the designated cafe. Just as I was about to leave, a familiar figure appeared at the door. Mary? No, it couldn't be her. But every gesture of that woman, from the tips of her hair to her fingertips, was a shadow of Mary. George, it's been a long time. She sat across from me, and the familiar voice nearly made my heart stop. Who are you? I struggled to remain calm. I'm Mary, your wife. She smiled and reached out her hand. There was a scar on her palm, the mark Mary got when she accidentally cut herself on glass at 15. Impossible. Mary is already dead. She laughed softly. That was just an accident. I fell off the cliff and was saved by a reclusive old doctor. I lost my memory from the injuries and only recently remembered everything. As she spoke, tears began to fall with an expression I knew all too well, the look Mary wore whenever she felt wronged. I know it's hard to believe, but I really am Mary. I couldn't believe my eyes. The shade of lipstick Mary loved most, the faint little mole beneath her left ear, the unconscious habit of rubbing her ring while speaking. Everything was so familiar. Are you really Mary? She nodded and took a small box out of her bag. This is the proof. Inside the box was the first piece of jewelry Mary ever designed. A sapphire ring, the only one of its kind, never mass-produced. I brought it with me that day because I wanted to surprise you. I suddenly stood up and pulled her into my arms. 3 years of longing surged over me like a tide. I held her tightly, afraid that if I let go, she would disappear again. On the way home, she told me about her experiences over the past 3 years. She was rescued by an old doctor in the mountains, lost her memory due to a severe head injury, and lived in a remote mountain village for more than 2 years. It wasn't until she happened to see a poster for my art exhibition that her memory gradually returned. The next day, I took her to see Frank. Oh my God, it really is you, Mary. Frank stared in astonishment, eyes wide. Frank, it's been a long time. She greeted him with a smile, exactly as I remembered. Frank pulled me aside and whispered, Man, this is unbelievable, but I really believe it's her. Who else but Mary could call me by my childhood nickname so accurately? That was something only the two of you knew. A week later, Mary officially returned. We held a small welcome party for her. Her mother was so overwhelmed that she fainted, and when she woke up, she clung to her daughter and refused to let go. But that night, I noticed the first sign that something was off. Mary never ate mangoes because she was severely allergic. Yet the returned Mary absent-mindedly tasted a mango dessert and was perfectly fine. Aren't you allergic to mangoes? I asked. She paused for a moment, then quickly laughed and said, Oh, that old Chinese doctor cured my allergy. He's really amazing. I nodded, but in my heart, I marked the first question mark. Is this really my wife? A month passed quickly, and Mary blended perfectly into our lives. She knew the location of every item in the house, remembered our shared memories, and could even accurately name friends we hadn't contacted in years. But those subtle feelings of discord kept growing. For example, the real Mary liked to listen to classical music, especially Debussy, while designing jewelry. But she would always unconsciously hum along to pop songs. Mary always habitually used her left hand to hold chopsticks, even though she knew it was wrong. She just couldn't change. But she was a standard right-handed user. The most obvious difference appeared that night when I accidentally caught her smoking in the bedroom. The real Mary hated the smell of smoke. Even when I came home from social events with a faint scent of cigarettes, she would frown. When did you start smoking? I stood at the doorway, my voice soft. She was clearly startled, hastily snuffing out the cigarette. This is a herbal cigarette for treating insomnia, prescribed by an old Chinese doctor. I nodded, not pressing further, but the doubts in my heart only grew deeper. The next day, I went to find Frank. Help me check if In the past 3 years, plastic surgery technology has advanced enough to achieve this level. Frank's eyes widened. You mean, she's not Mary? I'm not sure, but there are always some things that don't add up. 2 days later, Frank brought news. High-end plastic surgery can make faces look similar, but it can't replicate the exact placement of scars or moles. And there's a limit to how well someone can imitate a voice. What if it was a twin? Frank shook his head. Mary is an only child. We all know that. I decided not to show my feelings for now and to keep observing. A week later, Mary's mother came to my house with astonishing news. George, Mary is going to have a baby, my mother-in-law told me excitedly. I stood there stunned. Before we got married, Mary had been diagnosed with uterine hypoplasia. The doctor had made it clear she could never get pregnant. This was our shared secret. Not even my mother-in-law knew. How do you know that? I managed to ask. Mary told me this morning. She said she already had a checkup. It's been 2 months. My mother-in-law happily grabbed my hand. It's a blessing from above. Mary survived death, and now she can bring us new life. My heart sank to the bottom. This absolutely could not be Mary. That night, I dug out the hospital's diagnosis certificate in my study, which clearly stated the condition of Mary's uterus. But when I wanted to talk to Mary about it, I found her in the bedroom, excitedly discussing the decoration of the nursery with my mother-in-law. Mary, could you come here for a moment? I called her calmly. She followed me into the study, still wearing a blissful smile on her face. Did you forget about this? I handed her the diagnosis certificate. She took it and glanced at it, her face instantly turning pale. George, I can explain. Explain what? Explain that you're not Mary at all. Mother-in-law heard the commotion and walked in. What's going on with you two? Mom, take a look at this. I handed her the proof. My mother-in-law read it, then looked at Mary in astonishment. What's going on? Mary, you can't have children. Of course she can, I sneered, because she's not Mary at all. My mother-in-law's face changed dramatically. What nonsense are you talking about? I can explain. She hurriedly grabbed my mother-in-law's hand. That old Chinese doctor not only saved my life, but also cured my uterine problem. It's a miracle, truly. My mother-in-law looked at me, then at her, hesitating. George, you're being too paranoid. My mother-in-law finally took her daughter's side. Mary has come back with great difficulty. You should cherish her, not doubt her. Yes, George, I know this is hard to accept, but miracles do happen. Tears welled up in her eyes. Haven't we always wanted a child? Now we can finally have our own baby. I looked at her face, identical to Mary's. Yet I became more certain in my heart. This woman was not my wife. All right, I believe you. I smiled, deciding to go along with their story for now. Let's wait together for this miracle to happen. That night, I secretly contacted a private detective. My mother-in-law gladly accepted her daughter's explanation, even suggesting she move in with us to take care of Mary during her pregnancy. Outwardly, I agreed, but inside I grew even more wary. This was no coincidence. There had to be some kind of plot. Mom, haven't you always lived in Haicheng? Won't it be hard to get used to living here? I probed cautiously. For my grandson, I'm willing to endure any inconvenience, my mother-in-law said firmly. I noticed a fleeting unnatural expression on Mary's face. Could the truth be connected to my mother-in-law? On the 3rd day after my mother-in-law moved in, I discovered more suspicious details. For example, the real Mary never drank coffee, but she and my mother-in-law often enjoyed it together. Also, Mary's favorite movie was Roman Holiday, but she claimed to prefer Titanic. The strangest thing is, Mary used to despise her cousin Tom when she was alive, but now he visits frequently and chats and laughs with Mary as if they're old friends. I told Frank about these discoveries. Buddy, things are getting more and more suspicious, Frank frowned. Are you sure you want to keep going like this? Why not just expose her directly? It's not the right time yet. I want to find out what they're really after. The private detective's investigation also made progress. The so-called old Chinese doctor who had saved Mary did not exist at all, and Mary's whereabouts over the past 3 years were completely untraceable. More importantly, the private detective uncovered a shocking fact during the investigation. Mary's cousin Tom was deeply in debt from gambling, and the painting Eternity under my name, worth over $6 million, was his only hope for quick cash. Thereafter your painting, the private detective asserted, and this fake Mary is likely a professional identity fraudster, hard to win your trust. I took a deep breath and decided to take the initiative. That afternoon, I pretended to go out, but secretly returned home and hid in the study. Sure enough, Mary and her cousin Tom were whispering to each other in the living room. "It's taking too long," Tom said irritably. "How much longer until he sells the painting?" "Don't worry," she soothed him. "I'm already pregnant, and now he completely believes I'm Mary. In a little while, I'll say I want to move to a better neighborhood for the sake of the baby, and then we'll naturally need to sell the painting to raise money." "You're really pregnant?" "That wasn't part of the plan. It was an accident, but it works to our advantage. George wants a child so badly." "Does Annie know the truth?" "She only knows we're trying to scam money, not the specific plan. But she hates George, thinks he caused her daughter's death, so she's more than happy to help." I clenched my fists. So my mother-in-law had always believed that Mary's accident was somehow my fault. In fact, we did argue over something trivial that day, and Mary stormed out in anger. I didn't try to stop her. But I never imagined it would be the last time I'd see her. "You don't actually have feelings for George, do you?" Tom suddenly asked. She was silent for a moment. "It's just part of the job. Besides, I owe you, and I won't go back on my word." "Good then. Don't forget how we're splitting the money once we get it." Their conversation confirmed my suspicions. This was all an elaborate scheme, with my eternity as the target. In the days that followed, I pretended everything was normal while secretly making preparations. I contacted the police, arranged for evidence-gathering equipment, and found the last piece Mary had left before she died, a silver necklace that had never been made public, engraved with an anniversary date only the two of us knew. 2 weeks later, my art exhibition was held as scheduled. As planned, Mary brought up the idea of moving, hinting that I could sell eternity. I pretended to agree and said I would auction the painting on the last day of the exhibition. "This is a surprise I prepared for you," I said on the eve of the exhibition, taking out a delicate box. "To celebrate the new life we're about to begin." She opened the box in surprise, and inside was the silver necklace. "It's beautiful, thank you." She smiled as she prepared to put it on. "Wait," I stopped her. "Aren't you going to look at the engraving on the back?" She turned the necklace over, and her face suddenly went pale. "What's wrong? Don't you like it?" I asked, feigning ignorance. "No, I really like it. It's just, I'm a bit moved." She forced a smile, but didn't know how to explain that she couldn't recognize the significance of that date. "See you tomorrow. Get some good rest, and don't forget to wear this necklace." I kissed her forehead and whispered in her ear, "After all, this is your final design." Her body visibly stiffened for a moment, but she kept smiling. "Of course, I cherish it very much. Tomorrow, the truth will come to light." On the day of the exhibition, the place was packed with people. My painting, Eternity, was displayed in the most prominent spot, right next to the last batch of jewelry designs Mary had created before her death. Mary held my arm, flawlessly playing the role of my wife as always. She had even gone out of her way to wear Mary's favorite white dress and the silver necklace I had given her last night. My mother-in-law and Tom were there too. The three of them exchanged glances from time to time, clearly waiting for the perfect moment. Frank appeared as planned, pretending to be extremely interested in Eternity and asking me about the auction details. "The auction will begin promptly at 4 in the afternoon," I replied with a smile. "This painting means a great deal to me, and I hope it finds someone who truly appreciates it." Mary immediately chimed in. "Yes, although it's hard to part with it, this is a necessary decision for our future." I noticed she glanced at Tom, who gave a barely perceptible nod. At 3:30 in the afternoon, the projector in the center of the exhibition hall lit up. This was the special segment I had arranged. "Ladies and gentlemen, I stood in front of Eternity. Before the auction begins, I'd like to share a little story about this painting." Mary's photo appeared on the projection screen, a group picture from her last birthday party before she passed away. 3 years ago, my wife Mary died in an accident. I created this painting, Eternity, in her memory. The woman in the painting has her back to the viewer, forever gazing into the distance, symbolizing a longing I can never reach. A soft sigh rippled through the crowd. Mary stood beside me, matching my words with a sorrowful expression. However, a month ago, a miracle happened. I turned to look at Mary. My wife came back. The whole room erupted in astonishment, and many people curiously sized up Mary. "This is my wife, Mary." I took her hand and stepped forward. "Back from the dead, it's truly the greatest blessing heaven could have given me." She smiled and nodded to everyone, while my mother-in-law and Tom stood by with smug expressions. However, my tone suddenly shifted. Amidst my joy, a question arose. Is she really Mary? The entire room fell silent. Mary's hand trembled slightly in my palm. So, I did some investigating. The projector switched to a set of comparison photos. On the left was the real Mary. On the right was a photo of her. They look exactly the same, don't they? But I clicked the remote, and the photo was enlarged, the details highlighted. The position of the piercing on the left ear was slightly different, the arch of the eyebrows subtly varied, and the fine lines at the corners of the eyes ran in different directions. These are details that even professional plastic surgery cannot fully replicate. Mary tried to pull her hand away, but I held on tightly. My mother-in-law and Tom also began to grow anxious, glancing toward the exit. More importantly, the real Mary has a feature that cannot be copied. I turned to Mary. The necklace I gave you last night has a date engraved on the back. Can you tell everyone what that date is? She opened her mouth, but no words came out. That was the due date of our first child, the one we lost. I spoke softly, my voice trembling with emotion. Mary designed this necklace to commemorate the baby we never got to meet. The date was our secret, only Mary and I knew. The room fell utterly silent. Mary turned deathly pale, my mother-in-law's eyes widened, and Tom had already started edging toward the door. What surprised me even more, I continued, was that the real Mary could never get pregnant due to an underdeveloped uterus. Yet this, Mary claims she's already 2 months along. I let go of her hand and took a step back. So, who are you really? A flicker of despair flashed in Mary's eyes, but she quickly regained her composure. I am Mary, it's just that old Chinese doctor. The non-existent old Chinese doctor, right? I sneered. Just like the non-existent amnesia, the non-existent miraculous recovery. I turned toward the projection screen. Let's see the truth. The screen played the secretly recorded video of her conversation with Tom, their discussion on how to swindle eternity, clearly audible. This isn't. She tried to explain, but my mother-in-law had already rushed forward. Who are you really? My mother-in-law screamed. You're not my daughter? Auntie, stop pretending, I said calmly. You know she's not Mary. You just wanted to get back at me, didn't you? My mother-in-law's face turned pale. I didn't know she was going to impersonate Mary. Tom just said he needed help to scam some money. Police. Don't move. Several plainclothes officers emerged from the crowd, blocking Tom as he tried to escape. Amid the chaos, Mary took the opportunity to shove me aside and run toward the exit. I chased after her and caught up in the parking lot. Tell me, who are you really? She finally stopped, turned to face me, tears welling in her eyes. My name is Luna. I'm an actress. Tom found me and said if I helped trick you out of a painting, he'd give me $1 million. I needed the money for my sister's medical treatment. Why did they choose me? Why Mary? She shook her head. I don't know. They gave me a lot of information, photos, videos, even your chat logs. I was just following the script. The police arrived and took her away. I stood where I was, gazing at the distant sky, my heart a tumult of emotions. Back in the exhibition hall, the crowd had already dispersed, leaving only Frank and a few police officers. It's all been cleared up, Frank walked over. Tom owed money to loan sharks and was desperate. Your mother-in-law always resented you for not saving Mary, so she helped them plan the whole thing. I walked up to eternity, gently caressing the back of the woman in the painting. Mary, I can finally give you an answer. The police left with the evidence. Frank patted me on the shoulder. What do you plan to do next? I took a deep breath. Prepare for the final painting. What will it be called? The Pursuit, I said softly. This time, I'll paint her face, not just her back. After the case was solved, my life seemed to return to where it was 3 years ago. Eternity was temporarily held by the court as crucial evidence. Tom and Luna were arrested for fraud, and my mother-in-law was investigated as an accomplice. The prosecution wants you to testify in court, the officer called to inform me. The trial is scheduled for early next month. I agreed, though I was utterly exhausted inside. After exposing the deception, I thought I would feel the thrill of revenge, but what I felt instead was a profound emptiness. Those days spent with Mary that month had allowed me to feel a trace of warmth in life again, even if that warmth was born of lies. Frank often came to see me, worried I might fall into despair once more. I told him not to worry, that I was working on a new piece, The Pursuit. Are you really going to paint Mary's face from the front? Frank asked curiously. For the past 3 years, you've always refused to do that. It's time, I replied. We can't live in the past forever. I moved out of the apartment I had shared with Mary and returned to the old house in the suburbs, the place where the real Mary and I had first made our home. The dust-laden memories in the house brought me both pain and comfort. Mary's studio remained just as she had left it, design sketches scattered across the table, unfinished jewelry drafts pinned to the drawing board. One afternoon, while sorting through Mary's belongings, I discovered an encrypted external hard drive. After several attempts, I finally unlocked it using our wedding anniversary as the password. Inside were backups of Mary's design works, along with some personal photos and videos. One folder in particular caught my attention. Inside a folder named Plan was a series of jewelry design sketches, labeled George's Birthday Special Project. It was then I remembered that, in the months before Mary passed away, she often spoke mysteriously about giving me an unparalleled birthday surprise. Leafing through these design drafts, I couldn't help but be moved to tears. Mary had planned to design a jewelry collection inspired by my paintings over the years, with each piece corresponding to a representative work from my artistic career. The last page was a sketch of a ring, with a dark red stone set in the center, its edges adorned with tiny diamonds, closely resembling the sunrise in my early work, Dawn. This is blood amber? I examined the notes carefully, confirming the name of this rare gemstone. Mary's designs had always been bold, but blood amber is extremely rare in the Chinese market, almost impossible to acquire. How did she obtain such a material? As I continued searching, I found a series of email correspondence screenshots. Mary had actually contacted a gemstone dealer in Myanmar, commissioning the blood amber specifically for this ring. The last email showed that the gem had already been shipped, but the date was exactly 1 week before Mary's death. I immediately called Frank. Help me check if there was a package sent from Myanmar 3 years ago, addressed to Mary. 2 days later, Frank brought news. The package did exist, but since no one signed for it, it was returned. However, according to the shipping records, it was resent a month ago, this time addressed to you. What? I was completely confused. I haven't received any package. Check your old apartment? Frank suggested. Back at my old apartment, the manager told me there was indeed a package, but it had been signed for by Mary. She said it was a surprise for you, so she didn't notify you, the manager explained. This meant Luna had taken the blood amber. I rushed to the detention center and requested to see Luna. Separated by glass, she looked much more haggard than the last time we met, but still wore that face so similar to Mary's. What are you doing here? She asked coldly. A month ago, you signed for a package from Myanmar. There was a blood amber inside. I want to know where it is. She looked surprised. How did you know? Tom asked me to sign for it. He said it was some precious gem. He took it. My heart sank. Tom was deep in gambling debt. A precious blood amber would be a windfall for him. He had probably sold it long ago. That blood amber is very important to me, I said softly. It was the last gift my wife left me. Luna was silent for a moment, then suddenly said, maybe it's not that bad. Tom said the stone has flaws, its value is greatly reduced, and he hasn't found a suitable buyer yet. Hope was rekindled. If Tom hadn't sold the blood amber yet, maybe there was still a chance to get it back. Do you know where he might hide it? Luna hesitated for a moment. He has a safe deposit box in a self-storage facility on the east side of the city. After getting the address, I immediately contacted the officer in charge of the case and explained the situation. Since Tom was involved in a large sum of money, the police quickly approved the search request. Mr. George, we've found the safe deposit box, the officer said over the phone. Inside, we did find the blood amber you described, as well as some other evidence. A few hours later, I retrieved the blood amber at the police station. It was even more beautiful than I had imagined. Within the dark red core, wisps of mist seemed to swirl, shifting strangely under the light. This was the birthday gift Mary had so carefully chosen for me, waiting for 3 years. Back home, I carefully placed the blood amber beside the canvas of The Pursuit. The painting was already more than half finished, Mary's face emerging from the blur into clarity, yet it still felt like something was missing. Watching the blood amber glimmer faintly under the light, I suddenly understood how I should complete the painting. The creation of The Pursuit entered its final stage. I decided to break convention and incorporate the blood amber into the artwork. This would not only be a portrait, but a hybrid piece that fused painting with the art of jewelry. Are you sure you want to do this? Frank frowned. That blood amber is priceless. That's exactly why, I said firmly. Mary chose it for me. She wanted to inspire an unparalleled masterpiece. I will fulfill her wish. For 2 whole weeks, I worked day and night, neglecting sleep and food. I cut the blood amber into thin slices and inlaid them at the spot of Mary's eyes on the canvas, making her gaze truly come alive. I used a special technique to blend the surrounding paint, creating a harmonious transition with the gemstone. From certain angles, the entire painting seemed to be imbued with life, and Mary's expression would shift depending on where the viewer stood. On the day I finished the piece, Frank brought news. Luna had been sentenced to 3 years in prison, but due to her good attitude in confessing, she might serve only 1.5 years. Tom, involved in multiple fraud cases, was sentenced to 7 years. My mother-in-law, as an accomplice, received a suspended sentence. The case is finally over, Frank said. Are you planning to exhibit your painting? Yes. Next month there will be a solo exhibition at the National Art Museum, and The Pursuit will be the grand finale. The curator couldn't stop praising this piece, believing it represents the innovative direction of contemporary art and marks the pinnacle of my career. Indeed, this painting, which incorporates Mary's jewelry design concepts, is in some sense a creation we made together. On the eve of the exhibition, I checked the arrangement in the gallery alone one last time, making sure every piece was perfectly lit and positioned. When I reached The Pursuit, I couldn't help but stop and gaze at it. Mary's face was vividly lifelike, her eyes inlaid with blood amber gleaming under the spotlight, as if she were smiling at me. For the first time in 3 years, I faced her directly, no longer painting only her back. Mr. George, a stranger's voice called from behind. Sorry to disturb you, but the gallery has been cleared. He turned around to see a young woman dressed in the museum's staff uniform. And you are? I'm the new curator, responsible for security in your exhibition area, she explained with a smile. I really like your work, especially this piece, The Pursuit. Thank you. I nodded. I'll be leaving soon. She didn't leave, but continued to gaze at the painting. That red gem is beautiful, almost as if it's alive. It's blood amber, I explained, a very rare gemstone. I know, she said softly, top-grade blood amber from Myanmar, containing plant fossils, extremely rare. I looked at her in surprise. You know a lot about jewelry? She smiled. I studied jewelry design. I'm just working part-time here. For some reason, Mary suddenly came to mind. She, too, had an almost obsessive passion for and expertise in gemstones. If you don't mind me asking, who is the woman in this painting? She asked. My wife, I replied. She passed away 3 years ago. She was a jewelry designer. I'm very sorry, she said sincerely, then gestured toward the blood amber. This gem must mean a great deal to you. It was the last birthday gift she chose for me before she died, but I only found it recently. She nodded thoughtfully. Setting it into her portrait is the best way to remember her. For some reason, talking with this unfamiliar woman brought me a strange sense of calm. Perhaps it was her love for jewelry that reminded me of Mary. Sorry, I have to continue my rounds. She glanced at her watch. See you tomorrow, Mr. George. See you tomorrow, I replied, watching her leave. On the way home, I felt an unusual peace. The completion of The Pursuit seemed to mark the end of my search for Mary as well. Not forgetting, but remembering her forever in another way. The next day, the exhibition's opening ceremony attracted numerous figures from the art world and the media. The Pursuit undoubtedly became the center of attention, with people marveling at this innovative form of artistic expression. Amid the crowd, I noticed that curator standing aside, watching as well. Sunlight streamed through the skylight of the gallery, falling upon her, and for a fleeting moment, I thought I saw Mary's shadow. No, I shook my head, warning myself not to be deceived by mere resemblance. There would never be another Mary in this world, just as there would never be another unique blood amber. After the exhibition, The Pursuit was purchased by an anonymous collector for an astronomical price. I donated all the proceeds to a foundation supporting students in jewelry design, establishing a scholarship in Mary's name. Life slowly moved forward, and I began to accept new commissions and create new works. Occasionally, I would think of that curator with a unique insight into jewelry, wondering if she was still working at the art museum. Until one day, I received an email from HL. There were no words, only an image. A sketch of a ring design, the style strikingly similar to Mary's unfinished series. My heart raced as I replied immediately. Who is this? The response came quickly. Yesterday, you brushed past me by the cafe on the street corner, but you didn't recognize me. If you want to know more, wait for me at the museum entrance at noon tomorrow. Is it that librarian? How could she have a design so reminiscent of Mary's style? Filled with anxiety and anticipation, I decided to accept the invitation and find out for myself. The next day at noon, I arrived at the art museum half an hour early. The sun was shining, and small groups of visitors were coming and going from the exhibition hall. But there was no sign of the mysterious person. Just as I began to suspect this might be some kind of prank, a faint trace of perfume drifted by, a scent unfamiliar to me, yet it inexplicably reminded me of Mary. Mr. George, thank you for coming. The voice behind me made me turn around. It was the curator. Today, she wasn't wearing her uniform, but a simple white dress, completely different from Mary's style when she was alive. Did you send the email? I asked directly. She nodded. There are some things I want to tell you, but not here. Will you come with me? We walked through the small park beside the art museum and arrived at a secluded cafe. The whole time, I kept observing her. Her mannerisms, the way she walked, none of it resembled Mary. Yet her sensitivity to detail and her focused attention gave me a strange sense of familiarity. Who are you, really? The moment we sat down, I couldn't wait to ask. My name is Nicole. She looked me straight in the eye. I'm Mary's student. This answer caught me off guard. Mary had indeed taught jewelry design part-time at the Design Academy before she passed away, but she had never mentioned having any particularly close students. I took her advanced design class the year before she passed, Nicole explained. Her guidance benefited me for a lifetime. That still doesn't explain why your designs resemble her style so much, I said, half convinced. Nicole took a folder out of her bag. These are all notes from Ms. Nicole's class and her feedback on my work. You can look at the handwriting and confirm that it's really hers. I carefully examined the materials. It was indeed Mary's handwriting. There were even traces of the pale purple ink she habitually used. Before Ms. Nicole passed away, she was guiding me on my graduation project, Nicole continued. The theme was interwoven light and shadow, blending Eastern and Western aesthetic elements. She gave me a lot of valuable advice, and even showed me a sketch from a private project she was working on at the time. George's special birthday project? I blurted out. Nicole's eyes widened in surprise. You know about it? I only found out recently. I briefly explained the origin of the blood amber. I knew that blood amber would eventually find its way back to you, Nicole said with a smile. Nicole always said it was a destined gift. Is that why you contacted me? Because you saw the blood amber? Nicole was silent for a moment, as if choosing her words carefully. Not entirely. After Nicole passed away, I've been trying to carry on the design philosophy she taught me. Some time ago, I happened to see the news about your eternity being stolen, and then I saw someone impersonating Nicole. I thought I should tell you a few things. She took a letter out of her bag. This is the last letter Nicole gave me after class before she passed away. She said if her surprise plan went smoothly, I should show you this letter. If anything went wrong and she was gone, I should still make sure you see it. I took the envelope. It was indeed Mary's handwriting, and it read, "To my dearest husband." The envelope had already been opened. I didn't know what was in the letter at the time. I just kept it as Nicole instructed, Nicole explained. It wasn't until I saw the news that I opened it. I hope you won't blame me. I carefully took out the letter paper and unfolded it to read. Dear George, if you are reading this letter, perhaps my surprise plan has gone awry. Don't worry, it's just that the plan has changed, and the form of the gift may be different now. The blood amber I picked for you is said to be known as the Eye of Rebirth. Legend has it that looking at the world through it reveals truths that are often overlooked. I hope it can become a turning point in your artistic career, leading you to see new possibilities. All these years, your paintings have always depicted backs, as if you're afraid to face something head-on. I hope this gemstone will give you the courage to paint the front, to capture true emotions. No matter what happens, please remember, love does not disappear, it merely changes form, like this blood amber, which, after millions of years, transforms from resin into a gem, yet still shines. Forever loving you, Mary, the handwriting became a bit messy at the end, as if written in a hurry. I stroked the paper, as if I could feel Mary's emotions at that moment. "Thank you," I said, my voice choked with emotion. "This means a lot to me." "You're welcome. I'm just fulfilling Ms. Nicole's request," Nicole said with a smile. "Actually, there's one more thing I'd like to ask your help with." "What is it?" "I'd like to apply for the Mary Scholarship you established," she said, taking a design portfolio out of her bag. "This is my graduation project, combining Ms. Nicole's ideas with my own innovations." As I flipped through the portfolio, I was surprised to find that while these designs bore traces of Mary's influence, they also possessed a unique style and innovative touches. In particular, a series called Metamorphosis cleverly combined jewelry with transformable elements, allowing the pieces to change form according to the wearer's mood and occasion. "This is outstanding," I praised sincerely. "Mary would be proud of you." A hint of joy flashed in Nicole's eyes. "Really? I've always worried I couldn't live up to her expectations." "You've already moved beyond the learning stage and developed your own style." That's exactly what she hoped to see. As we talked, sunlight streamed through the window and fell on Nicole. In that moment, I seemed to understand something. When Mary spoke of love changing its form, perhaps she wasn't just referring to the blood amber, but also to her passion for art and its legacy. Luna tried to impersonate Mary by mimicking her appearance, but she could never truly replicate who she was. Nicole, on the other hand, looked nothing like Mary, yet she inherited a part of her artistic vision and spirit. Perhaps this is the true gift Mary left me, not the blood amber, but a new possibility, a path out of the past. Nicole's graduation exhibition was held in a small gallery. Though the space was modest, it was exquisitely arranged. Her works were divided into 3 series, representing the past, the present, and the future, forming a complete narrative. "This is a brilliant idea," I sincerely praised. From tradition to contemporary and then to the future, it showcases the evolution and possibilities of jewelry design. Nicole smiled and nodded. "This was inspired by teacher Nicole. She always says that good design should look back at history, be grounded in the present, and look forward to the future." As I walked through the exhibition hall, I noticed a special display case in the corner, containing only one piece, a seemingly simple ring with a small red gemstone set in the center. "This is..." I leaned in to read the label, which said, "In memory, dedicated to teacher Mary." "Yes, I made it from a small piece of blood amber I bought with my own savings," Nicole explained. "It can't compare to the quality of yours, but it's also from Myanmar." I examined the design of the ring closely. Clean, powerful lines, with fine silver threads encircling the blood amber, as if protecting the central gem, yet also seeming to radiate light outward. "This is very similar to Mary's final design style," I said softly, "but it also has your own unique touch. I wanted to create a piece that could both commemorate teacher Nicole and showcase my own style," Nicole explained. "The blood amber represents her influence, while the outer design is the direction of my own development." The exhibition attracted quite a few industry insiders, including some well-known figures from the jewelry design world. After viewing the exhibition, an older female designer approached Nicole and offered her an internship opportunity. I stood by, genuinely happy for Nicole. In the evening, as the exhibition was drawing to a close, Frank arrived as well. Seeing me with Nicole, he gave me a knowing smile. "New friend?" he asked me quietly. "Mary's student," I explained simply. "Very talented." Frank nodded without asking further questions. After touring the exhibition, he gave high praise to Nicole's work. It blends traditional and modern elements, demonstrating both technical skill and artistic expression, quite rare. Nicole thanked him politely. This wouldn't have been possible without the guidance of teacher Nicole and teacher George. After the exhibition, the 3 of us went to a nearby restaurant for dinner. During the meal, Frank talked about recent trends in the art market, while Nicole shared her insights on contemporary jewelry design. The conversation was light and pleasant, and I realized it had been a long time since I had relaxed and chatted with others like this. After a few rounds of drinks, Frank received an urgent call and left early. Only Nicole and I remained in the restaurant, and the atmosphere suddenly became a bit quiet. "Mr. George," Nicole hesitated for a moment before speaking. "I've always had a question I wanted to ask you." "What is it?" "After you finished The Pursuit, what are you planning to create next?" The question caught me off guard. To be honest, ever since The Pursuit, I haven't had any new inspiration. That painting seemed to have drained all my emotions and creativity. I haven't decided yet, I answered honestly. It might take some time to find a new direction. Nicole nodded thoughtfully. Nicole once said that the hardest thing for an artist isn't creating a stunning masterpiece, but finding a way forward after reaching the peak. She really did say that, I recalled with a smile. Mary always saw further than I did. Maybe, Nicole said softly, you could try a new direction that combines your work with jewelry design? Like in The Pursuit, but taking it even further. I recalled what Mary mentioned in her letter about seeing new possibilities, and suddenly I was inspired. You mean, creating a series of works that combine painting and jewelry? Exactly. Nicole said excitedly, your paintings create emotion in two-dimensional space, while jewelry gives it tangible form in the three-dimensional world. The combination of the two would have an astonishing effect. The more we talked, the more engaged we became, even sketching a few concept designs on the restaurant's napkins. Nicole's ideas were fresh and bold, perfectly aligning with my artistic vision, yet bringing a new perspective. As we left the restaurant, Nicole suddenly said, I have to confess something. I looked at her in confusion. I reached out to you not only to deliver Nicole's letter, but also for a personal reason. I hope to learn from you, she said candidly. I want to become a designer like Nicole, someone who not only creates beautiful works but also perfectly blends art with emotion. Her sincerity moved me. You're already on that path, and you're doing very well. Then, may I consult you often? She asked a little nervously. Of course, I'd be delighted. On the way home, a series of new works already began to take shape in my mind. A cross-disciplinary art that fuses painting and jewelry, both as a tribute to Mary and as a new starting point in my artistic career. That night, I had a dream. In the dream, Mary stood in a halo of blood-red light, smiling at me and saying, See, I knew you would find a new direction. When I woke up, I got out of bed immediately and began sketching for the new series. I decided to name it Rebirth. Not only representing the ancient life forever preserved in blood amber, but also symbolizing the rebirth of my artistic career, as well as the inheritance and development of Mary's artistic vision. A week later, I submitted a new series proposal to the gallery and received an enthusiastic response. The curator even suggested holding a special exhibition themed Between Dimensions, a dialogue between painting and jewelry. For this project, I invited Nicole to join the team as a jewelry design consultant. She had just graduated from design school and was both excited and nervous about the opportunity. Am I really up to the task? She asked me in the studio. You understand Mary's design philosophy better than anyone, I assured her. That's exactly what I need. In the days that followed, we worked at a feverish pace. We created during the day and discussed at night, sometimes even working through until dawn. Nicole's ideas flowed endlessly, and I transformed those thoughts into concrete artistic expressions. In the process, I rediscovered the pure joy of creation that I hadn't felt in a long time. One late night, when we finally finished the design for our first piece, Nicole clapped her hands excitedly. This is amazing. Teacher Nicole will definitely love it. At the mention of Mary, she suddenly realized her slip and looked at me nervously. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. It's all right, I said with a smile. I think Mary really would like it. She always hoped I could step out of my comfort zone and try new ways of expressing myself. Nicole let out a sigh of relief, then hesitantly asked, Professor George, may I ask you a personal question? What is it? When you faced the woman impersonating Professor Nicole, how did you see through her? I mean, from the news reports, she seemed like an exact copy of Professor Nicole. I pondered for a moment. Superficial resemblance is easy to achieve, but a true personality cannot be duplicated. Mary's perception of art, her attitude toward life, the way she handled details, these were all unique. Just like a work of art, Nicole mused, no matter how perfect a replica is, it can never capture the soul of the original. Exactly. We worked through the night again, and finally established the overall framework for the Rebirth series. 7 pieces, each blending elements of painting and jewelry, together telling a story of loss and recovery, death and rebirth. As our collaboration deepened, my relationship with Nicole gradually shifted from teacher and student to partners, both mentor and friend. Sometimes, when the light traced the gentle contours of her focused profile, I would unconsciously think of Mary. But soon, I realized that this association wasn't due to any physical resemblance, but rather that same dedication and passion for art. George, you look much more spirited lately, Frank remarked at a gathering. It's been a while since I've seen you so full of life. Yeah, the new project has helped me rediscover the joy of creating. Nicole's a good girl, Frank said meaningfully. Talented, and she really understands you. I understood his implication, but just smiled without responding. There was indeed a special understanding between Nicole and me, but it was more rooted in our shared passion for art than anything else. At least for now. The creation of the Rebirth series took 3 months, longer than expected, but the results were stunning. Each piece was a perfect fusion of painting and jewelry art, offering both the pleasure of viewing as a flat image and the discovery of three-dimensional effects brought by the jewelry elements from different angles. A week before the exhibition opened, I received an unexpected visitor, Luna. She had served her sentence and was released early. She looked much more haggard than the last time we met, but her eyes were clearer. I came to apologize to you in person. She stood at the studio door, her voice low, for everything I have done. I didn't respond immediately, but simply invited her in to sit down. I know that an apology can't make up for the loss, she continued, but I want you to know that I truly regret it. How is your sister's illness? I asked. She looked up in surprise. You know. I guessed. You said you needed money for a reason, and I think that must have been true. Yes, she nodded. My sister's surgery was a success, and now she's fully recovered. For the past 3 years, I've been thinking about how to make up for my mistakes. Even though I may never be able to. I was silent for a moment, then said, in a way, your appearance actually helped me. What do you mean? It forced me to confront the past, to re-examine my memories with Mary, and ultimately to find a way forward. I pointed to the sketches of the Rebirth series on the wall and briefly explained this new project. Luna listened quietly, a look of genuine respect in her eyes. I'm glad you were able to find a new beginning from that nightmare, she said at last. I hope I can find my own path to rebirth as well. As she left, she handed me a small package. These are some simple pieces of jewelry I made in prison. The craftsmanship is rough, but each one represents my remorse and blessings. I hope you can accept them. Opening the package, I found several small trinkets handmade from fine wire and colorful glass beads. Though simple, it was clear the creator had poured their heart into them. Nicole happened to come into the studio at that moment. Seeing the trinkets, she asked curiously, "What are these?" I told her about Luna's visit. You forgave her? Nicole was a bit surprised. Not exactly forgiveness. I said thoughtfully, it's more like understanding. Everyone has their own hardships and choices. What's important is how we learn and grow from our mistakes. Nicole nodded pensively, picking up a piece of jewelry to examine it closely. The craftsmanship is rough, but the concept is ingenious. This person seems to have a talent for design. Perhaps, I said, everyone has the possibility of being reborn. On the day of the exhibition opening, numerous figures from the art and jewelry worlds gathered together. The Rebirth series received unprecedented acclaim. Critics called it a model of cross-disciplinary art, and the gallery owner was overjoyed, announcing plans for a nationwide tour. In the crowd, I saw Luna. She was dressed simply, standing quietly in a corner, admiring the exhibits. Our eyes met in the air. She nodded slightly, then walked away. Who was that? Nicole asked, standing beside me. Someone searching for rebirth, I replied. Nicole seemed to understand and asked no more. We stood side by side before the pursuit, watching the blood amber refract a strange light under the lamps, like the silent burning of life's flame. Thank you, I whispered to Nicole. Without you, this series might never have come into being. It was your philosophy that guided us, teacher Nicole, she replied modestly. I was just fortunate enough to be the messenger. In that moment, I suddenly understood the true meaning of what Mary had written in her letter. Love has changed its form. Love exists not only in memory and longing, but also in inheritance and innovation, shining brightly in every spark of artistic creation. And I, at last, had learned how to begin anew after loss, to embrace rebirth while still searching. The success of the exhibition exceeded everyone's expectations. In just 1 month, the Rebirth series was reported on by major media outlets and even attracted the attention of the international art world. A renowned auction house extended an olive branch to me, hoping to include several pieces in their annual highlight auction. "This is an unprecedented opportunity," Frank said excitedly. "If the deal goes through, you'll become a top player in the contemporary art market." I wasn't particularly concerned with commercial success, but I did feel the joy of having my work widely recognized. More importantly, this series opened up a new artistic path for me, freeing me from the creative shackles of the past 3 years. Nicole benefited as well. As the project's jewelry design consultant, she received high praise from the industry. Several well-known jewelry brands reached out to her, hoping she would join their design teams. "Which offer are you planning to accept?" One night, as we were tidying up the studio together, I asked her. "To be honest, I'm still hesitating." Nicole paused her work. "These are all great opportunities, but..." "But what?" "But I want to keep working with you." She looked straight into my eyes. "Rebirth is just the beginning, isn't it?" Her candor surprised me a little. Indeed, the success of this series had opened up many new creative possibilities for us, but I wasn't sure if I should continue such a close working relationship. "You should consider your own career development," I said tactfully. "These opportunities are very rare for young designers." Nicole seemed to sense my hesitation and nodded gently. "I understand." In the days that followed, we were both busy and rarely had the chance to talk alone. A week later, Nicole told me she had decided to accept an invitation from a French jewelry brand and would be going to Paris to work for 2 years. "Congratulations," I said sincerely. "It's a very good choice." "Thank you," she replied with a smile, though a fleeting, elusive emotion flashed in her eyes. "I think this is the best arrangement for both of us." Before Nicole left, we held a small farewell party. Frank, the curator, and a few mutual friends came. The atmosphere was warm, tinged with a hint of sadness. After a few rounds of drinks, Frank found an opportunity to pull me aside. "Are you really going to just let her go like this?" "What do you mean?" I pretended not to understand. "Don't play dumb, man," Frank said bluntly. "You have feelings for her. That's obvious." "That's just professional rapport," I argued. "Is that so?" Frank looked at me meaningfully. "Then why have you been so distracted ever since she decided to go to France?" I was at a loss for words. In fact, these past few days I had indeed felt an inexplicable sense of loss, but I kept telling myself it was only because I had lost an excellent partner. "I know what you're worried about." Frank lowered his voice. "You feel like you're letting Mary down, don't you?" I remained silent. He had touched upon the deepest concern in my heart. "Mary has been gone for 3 years now." Frank gently patted my shoulder. "She would want you to be happy." After the party ended, I walked Nicole home. The night was tranquil as water, and the city lights flowed around us. "Thank you for your help and guidance these past few months." Nicole stopped at the entrance of her apartment building. "This experience has meant so much to me." "I should be thanking you," I said sincerely. "Without you, the Rebirth series would never have been completed." We fell into silence, as if both searching for the right words to say goodbye. "My flight is the morning after tomorrow," Nicole finally said. "I still have some things to take care of tomorrow. So, this is probably the last time we'll see each other. 2 years will pass quickly." I tried to make my voice sound light. "Paris is a beautiful city. You'll like it there." She nodded, a complex emotion flickering in her eyes. "Professor George, there's something I've always wanted to tell you, but never found the right opportunity." "What is it?" "I chose to study jewelry design because I saw Nicole's works." She took a deep breath, or more precisely, because I saw the pieces Nicole designed for you. The way she perfectly fused love and art moved me deeply. "I didn't know that," I said in surprise. "I've always hoped that one day I could be like Nicole, creating art filled with emotion." Nicole continued, her words coming faster, as if afraid she might lose her courage. "But now I realize that what I want even more is to create for a specific person, just like Nicole created for you." I understood her implication, and my heart suddenly began to race. "Nicole, please don't respond," she gently interrupted me. "I just wanted you to know before I leave. No matter how you feel right now, remember that starting over is not a betrayal of the past, but a way of cherishing life." With that, she rose up on her tiptoes and softly kissed my cheek, then quickly turned and walked into the apartment building, leaving me standing alone in the night, my mind in turmoil. After returning home, I tossed and turned, unable to sleep, replaying Nicole's words and that gentle kiss over and over in my mind. Suddenly, I remembered a small box in the study, where Mary's last complete letter was kept, a letter I had found while sorting through her belongings. But at the time, overwhelmed by grief, I never had the courage to open. Now, I finally mustered the courage to walk into the study and retrieve that delicate little box from the depths of the drawer. Inside lay a pale pink letter, bearing Mary's familiar handwriting. Dearest George, by the time you read this letter, you may find yourself at a crossroads in life, hesitating between moving forward or staying where you are. My greatest wish is that you can move bravely through life, as freely as your brush glides across the canvas. Love is not a shackle, but a liberation. Memory is not a burden, but a source of strength. If one day you meet someone who can rekindle the light in your eyes, please don't hesitate because of your longing for me. True love is wishing happiness for the other, even if there is no longer a place for oneself in that happiness. Remember, the days we loved each other were complete, with no need for regrets. And now, it's time to paint a new picture, my beloved. Forever loving you. Mary. Tears blurred my vision. It was as if Mary had foreseen my current situation and had already given me her blessing. She was always like this, always able to see further and more clearly than I could. At that moment, I made up my mind. Early the next morning, I drove straight to Nicole's apartment. Professor George? Nicole opened the door in surprise, clearly not expecting me. I have something to say to you. I looked her straight in the eyes, not as your teacher, but as George. I handed her Mary's letter. Nicole read it carefully, her expression shifting from surprise to being moved, and finally, her eyes grew moist. She truly was an extraordinary woman, Nicole said softly, handing the letter back to me. Yes, she was. I nodded. That's exactly why I believe her words. Nicole, cancel your plans for Paris. Stay and continue our collaboration, will you? Nicole looked at me in shock. Are you serious? I've never been more serious, I said quietly. Rebirth is not just the name of an artwork, it's a possibility in life. Are you willing to explore that possibility with me? Her answer was a firm embrace, warm and real, like the first ray of sunlight after a long winter. In that moment, I felt as if Mary was somewhere, smiling down on us, blessing this new beginning. Life is like that blood amber, enduring countless ages of change and sedimentation, ultimately transforming into an eternal radiance. And I, at last, understood what true pursuit is, what true rebirth means. A year later, Nicole and I unveiled our second joint project, Interwoven, at the National Art Museum. This series was even bolder and more innovative than Rebirth, blending Eastern and Western aesthetics with various art forms. Critics hailed it as a significant breakthrough in contemporary art. At the opening ceremony, Nicole held my arm as we faced the media interviews and congratulations from the audience together. She wore a simple white dress, and around her neck was the Eye of Rebirth necklace we designed together. She completed the jewelry part based on my painting. Your collaboration seems even more in sync than your last project, a reporter asked with a suggestive smile. Nicole glanced at me, and we exchanged a smile. Yes, both in art and in life, we found the perfect balance. This indirect answer drew a round of good-natured laughter from the reporters present. My relationship with Nicole was no longer a secret, but we always kept a low profile, letting the public's attention remain focused on our artistic creations. After the exhibition, we drove out to a small hill in the countryside. There stood an ancient oak tree, beneath which Mary's ashes were laid to rest. This was the place we chose, rather than a traditional cemetery, natural, peaceful, just like Mary herself. Mary, the exhibition was a great success today, I said softly to the stone beneath the tree. Nicole's designs were admired by everyone, just as you once predicted. Nicole crouched down and placed a bouquet of white daisies in front of the stone. Teacher Nicole, I've been working hard to become the kind of designer you hoped I would be. I hope you can be proud of me. A gentle breeze stirred, and the oak's leaves rustled softly, as if it were Mary's reply. On the way back, Nicole suddenly said, I've been thinking about something. What is it? If that woman who pretended to be Ms. Nicole hadn't appeared, you might never have found the blood amber, never created the pursuit, and we might never have met. Her words made me fall into deep thought. Indeed, it was the series of events triggered by that deception that ultimately led to everything now. It feels as if, in the unseen, some force has been orchestrating it all. Perhaps that's the irony of fate, I said softly. Sometimes, the worst beginnings can lead us to the best endings. When I returned home, I received an unexpected package. Upon opening it, I found a delicate little box containing a handmade ring. Though simple, The craftsmanship had improved greatly compared to the pieces I had seen before. There was a note attached. Mr. George, thank you for your kindness and understanding a year ago, which gave me the courage to start over. Now I have found a job at a small jewelry shop, and my life is gradually getting back on track. This ring represents my gratitude, and I wish you happiness and well-being on your new path. Luna, I handed the ring to Nicole. After examining it carefully, she remarked, her skills have improved a lot. She truly has talent. Some mistakes in life shouldn't become permanent scars, I sighed. Everyone deserves a second chance. That night, we sat in the studio, discussing ideas for the next series. Nicole suddenly proposed a bold idea. I was thinking, maybe we could try connecting the different stages of our work to create a complete narrative. From eternity to quest, then to rebirth, and intertwined, they're actually different phases in a person's life journey. You mean? A complete story about loss, searching, rebirth, and integration, she explained excitedly, ultimately asking what is the most precious treasure in life. Love. I finished her sentence. No matter what form it takes. Nicole nodded, her eyes sparkling with creative fire. We could call it the forms of love, an unprecedented artistic exploration. Sounds like a long-term, ambitious project. We have time, she smiled, holding my hand. We have so much time. In that moment, I felt a powerful surge of creative inspiration, just like when I first began my artistic career years ago, filled with passion and possibility. But this time, I was not facing the blank canvas alone. 2 years later, the Forms of Love series was exhibited simultaneously in the world's 5 greatest art museums, causing an unprecedented sensation. Critics called it a milestone in contemporary art history, blending painting, sculpture, jewelry design, and other art forms to create an entirely new artistic language. The final piece of the exhibition was titled Eternal Ring, a massive circular canvas depicting every form of love in life, familial, platonic, romantic, and the love for art itself. The edge of the canvas was inlaid with gemstones of various sizes, and under certain lighting, these gems would cast light onto specific parts of the canvas, revealing another hidden layer of patterns. The centerpiece of this work is a massive blood amber. Through intricate optical design, the light it projects perfectly outlines 2 embracing figures. One is Mary, the other is Nicole, symbolizing the intersection of past and present, the fusion of memory and rebirth. On the closing day of the exhibition, in front of the Eternal Ring, I knelt on one knee and proposed to Nicole. The ring was crafted from the very blood amber Mary had once prepared for me, designed by my own hand and fashioned by the finest jeweler. This ring carries the memories of the past and the hopes for the future, I whispered softly. Nicole, will you be the eternal ring in my life? Her tears sparkled under the spotlight. I will. Amidst the cheers, I remembered what Mary once said. Love does not disappear. It merely changes its form. Yes, love does not disappear. It exists in memories, in art, in every rebirth and new beginning. It traverses time and crosses space, like that blood amber which, after millions of years, still shines, forever retaining the original warmth and brilliance of life. This is the answer I have been searching for all along. Between loss and gain, between seeking and rebirth, love remains constant, only appearing in different forms along the journey of life. And all we need to do is bravely accept this gift, no matter how it comes to us. On the day of the wedding, the sky was a clear, washed blue. Beneath the ancient oak tree that had watched over Mary, we exchanged our vows. A gentle breeze stirred, making the leaves whisper as if blessings were drifting in from another world. No matter when or where, Nicole said softly, we'll always remember that it was she who brought us together. Yes, I squeezed her hand, and we will always cherish this gift. In the brilliant sunlight, the blood amber ring gleamed, radiant as life itself, enduring the passage of time, yet still shining bright.